The Ready for a Relationship podcast helps people just like you who find themselves single and alone in their later years get unstuck and break the pattern to move forward and build the loving relationship you expected to have at this point in your life. Discover how to build your relationship with confidence in a fun, easy, loving way so that you are the right person for your right person. And if you enjoy the show and want to share some love, subscribe, rate, review, leave a comment. It all really helps. Here's Suzanne, the host of your show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest Ready for a Relationship podcast. I'm Suzanne, your host, and I am so excited I'm having Linda join me today. Linda is a fellow coach in another area, and guess what? She's going to be talking about her speciality, which is men in relationships, sometimes men starting new relationships and interacting in new relationships. And before you tune out, ladies, actually, I don't even have to say this because ladies are like, ooh, I want to know what she's going to tell men to do and say, right? A lot of these things I think are good for both men and women to hear. Mm-hmm. But I just want an opportunity for everybody to get to know Linda and what she's doing a little bit more and how relationships can be better served when we learn to better communicate. Right, Linda?
Yes, definitely. Yes.
Excellent. So tell us first a little bit about your business, what you do. Thanks.
Okay. Yes. So I'm Linda, and thank you, Suzanne, for having me. Yes. I help men understand their wives, what their wives or their future wife or the woman in their life, help him understand what she needs and what she wants. And which also, obviously, it's super important what he wants and needs as well. But I start with the men because I believe they're the leaders in the relationship and they lead by example. And so I'm going to work with them. And I have, I've been married for 35 years. So I have 35 years of experience and made many mistakes. And as well as my husband and I have worked through a lot of things, and growth is possible and change is possible. And when we learn the steps that we need to make in our relationships, because I believe love is an action and love is a verb. So when we learn the things that we need to do, we can have a really good relationship with our partner, and want to help people and serve people so that they can avoid some of the things that they may not realize what's going to be happening, and either avoid it or work on it and make their relationship the relationship they want it to be.
Oh, Linda, I so love this. No wonder we have this connection together. It's the communication is the key. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter the whole men, women, whatever the relationship is. It's whether you're dating, whether you're in the relationship, whether you're going to solidify the relationship, whatever it is, you need the communication.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And one of the things too is, what makes each other feel loved? Like men feel cared about and loved when they're respected. They need unconditional respect. And women need to be heard. A lot of times all we want is him just to say, I hear you. I hear you're feeling this, even if it doesn't make sense. If something happened at work or something happened in your day and he's thinking, oh, you're overreacting or whatever. If he just says, I hear that you're hurt by this situation and I understand how you feel. That's brings those walls down if we can learn to show empathy and seek first to understand the other person, their reality without judging it or trying to change it. And that's one of the things that I'm going to go over that's harder to do than it sounds, but it's doable, and it makes a huge, huge difference in a relationship.
Oh, that is so good. Okay, listeners, I'm sure you were nodding yes to that last part. Just pause, rewind, and just hear what Linda said again, because it's that valuable. Isn't it amazing how something so little seems so little? I hear you. Can make such a huge difference.
Oh, it's amazing. It really is. Yeah.
So what else do people need to hear? What else do men need to know about?
I think a lot of the things is men, when they start working on themselves, so say they have insecurities or some struggles, they start working on growth, then the woman is drawn to him. He can draw her in. And by accepting her, hearing her, and working on himself, forgiveness is a big part of it too. If negative things build up in the relationship, like it's John Gottman says, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse: criticism, contempt, stonewalling, and defensiveness. If there's a lot of defensiveness and criticism, it's going to push her away. But there are ways to draw her in where she's drawn to him and the relationship becomes more intimate and more connected. So intimacy is a big part of it too. That intimate connection, which also affects the physical relationship as well. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so important. So all of this, I just love it. I'm so glad our listeners are getting to know you and what is so important in a relationship, right? So what else is there? I know you've got more.
Well, one of the things, just once her experience with you as a man, her experience with you, she needs to feel like she can trust and feel safe in her experience with you. So whatever that experience is, your emotional connection, how you react in public, or how you if she feels safe and so that she can trust you and how you respond and how you react, she's going to be able to open up more and share herself. And she's also going to be more willing to listen and to understand your perspective. But that connection is based on your experience together in your connection, your intimate connection with each other. And, I mean, there have been times when I thought, I wish he would just understand what I'm trying to say, right. Even though I know I'm not making sense or he doesn't make sense or whatever. But if you just calm down and say, okay, sometimes we'll say, okay, you take the stage, and I'll just think, okay, I'm just going to listen and I'm just going to try to understand what he's trying to say.
Right.
And then we'll do, we'll flip sides and it makes a huge, huge difference. You think, don't defend myself. Don't be defensive. Right. Just really listen to his perspective, because his perspective matters.
Right.
First perspective also matters. So
the whole communication, again, it's just so key. Nobody's a mind reader, right?
Right, exactly.
And sometimes we think, no, I want to be alone. I want to process my own thoughts. I don't want to share with you. Mm-hmm. And isn't it that not sharing that builds the walls between a couple?
Yes. And also assuming, like sometimes I call it assumicide, because if you're assuming they think this or they're feeling this without really knowing, then you can just go down the wrong path. And I heard someone recently say, it was somebody talking about assuming, making some assumptions. And they said, you're just dressing them in rags. It's like you're putting something on them that is not there, instead of seeing the best and saying, well, explain to me how you're feeling and what you're thinking. And then just stop and listen. And once you really hear them versus what you're perceiving, which really a lot of times is not true, then you can actually hear their perspective and you say, okay, I understand why you would feel that way. That makes sense to me, even though you don't even have to really necessarily agree with it, but you can still understand it, what they're feeling. Mm-hmm. So
Linda, that's so powerful. And I think it's a learned response, right? Like
Oh, it's
so often we're like, oh, we're in our own little world
Yeah.
and busy, busy, busy. Lives are always busy. And we forget to stop, to
Yeah.
ask, to
Yes.
interact, to listen.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've forgotten the basics of,
Yeah.
gosh, you might do that in business. How can we forget to do that in our relationships?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. We put all this practice into, like you said, business or working out or, getting in shape, eating right, all these things. And then we forget to practice how we relate to each other. We kind of stick that on the side.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you were talking about this preconceived idea, and how did you say it? It's something side?
Assume aside.
Assume aside. Okay. So when you assume something without asking, it's like something I talk a lot about. We carry a whole bunch of baggage with us, right?
Yeah.
And it's stuff that happened to us when we were a child, how we interacted with our parents, how we were in past relationships.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like, just because it happened in this way in a past relationship,
Right.
the only way that's going to happen again is if we drag it back in and say, oh, I know it's going to be the same. And sometimes we create it to be the same.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah.
All because we're assumiciding.
Exactly. Yeah. And we have to look at reality too. Sometimes we have skewed, ideas about what's really happening. And if two people are assuming, that's not a good conversation. That causes problems. And then the relationship goes down the tubes and you have to say, okay, we'll take a break. But practicing that is just super, super important. And, not also looking at your conversations with your partner as, you don't have to always win, it's not winning. And the thing is, like, you don't want to get to the point where one person says, okay, you're right. You're right. Because it's kind of like basically the conversation's over. You want them to say, yeah, that's right. That's how I feel. You want them to get to that point where they're like, yeah, you got it. You said exactly what I feel. You understand. And once that understanding happens, it's just like all those walls of defensiveness or whatever it is just drop away. And instead of always like, oh, well, let me give you some advice, or you shouldn't feel that way, all these things. We had a friend that one time she was so upset with her husband because he had gone to a conference that she wanted to go to, and she was at home with the kids. And then he called her on Saturday and said, why don't you drive up? This is in California. Why don't you drive up and come to the afternoon session? And on her way driving up, she was so mad and upset that he hadn't asked her to go to the whole thing. She was just getting madder and madder, and she was driving. And she almost turned around and went back, but she went. And she said, okay, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to tell him I'm upset. But the minute he came to the car, he could see, that she was upset. And she decided to tell him how she felt, how she was upset with him for not, asking her ahead of time to get a babysitter and come, because she really liked this speaker a lot. And what he did was all he did was listen. And then he just hugged her as she started crying. He said, I'm so sorry. I understand how you feel. I'm really, really sorry. And all of that anger just dissipated because he just gave her understanding. And then she ended up having a really good afternoon. If she hadn't said anything and he hadn't responded in that way, they may have gotten into a fight or she would have been upset. But everything just was okay after that.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very powerful.
Well, men, did you catch that? I'm sorry, we're two women on this call. How often does a hug and I understand and I'm sorry just disperse, just melt all the stress, the tension, the anger away?
Exactly. Yeah.
You'd have to be pretty darn mad for a pretty long time for a simple hug not to work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow. And that's something I always say with my husband is we never go to bed angry.
Yeah.
Nothing gets
Exactly.
better
Yeah.
overnight.
You can't sleep. Anyway. Yeah.
Nothing gets better. So yeah, talk about, do you have other examples, Linda? That was such a beautiful story of anything else from couples, from relationships that you've seen.
Well, I mean, I know in our relationship, just like you said, if we're upset about something or we're not really seeing the other's perspective and we try to go to sleep, we can't sleep. So we have learned the practice of, okay, we're not going to go to sleep until we understand each other. And usually end up saying, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm the only person I can change.
Right.
Obviously so my job is to see what I've done that made him defensive or made him feel hurt and say, I'm sorry. I mean, to me, it's like, if you can't say you're sorry and say that was wrong, or I reacted that way, I wasn't trying to hurt you, but I did. I mean, it's worth it. It's so worth it just to admit it and say, and let's move on to tomorrow. Right. I mean, I don't know, people are afraid to say they're sorry, I guess, because they're afraid they're losing or something, but it's just so worth it. I mean, we're human, you know what I mean? We're going to mess up and we're going to get frustrated about something. Could be something with our kids or anything like that, and maybe snap at our spouse. But it's just so worth it to admit where you're wrong and work on that aspect of it's a process. We're all in process of growing and maturing and all that. Yeah.
So I'll ask a question. You tell me if I'm on the right track. In the right relationship, it's really important to allow yourself to let your guard down, to be intimate, to be vulnerable, to say what you're thinking, to apologize if needed, to say, I'm here for you.
Yes.
It makes you closer, correct?
Oh, yes, totally. And then there are little things like when my husband comes home from a really busy day, he needs downtime. He needs time to basically just kind of float through the kitchen or wherever I am and just get some time to unwind.
Right.
And, just a lot of little things like that, that I know that he needs. When you know the other person's needs, you can, okay, great. I'm not going to give him a bunch of chores or whatever, like when the kids are little, coming in and the man is given all these chores and he needs to unwind. Doesn't mean he's lazy. It means he needs time to relax.
And let me ask you another question there, Linda. Did he ever tell you that? Did he say, I need some downtime when I first come home?
Yes.
Bingo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I have heard women say, no, I want him to come in and, take over the kids and all this the minute he gets in the door. But there's all kinds of things that we need that sometimes we don't speak about. We don't, we may not even voice it because we're afraid we're going to get in a fight or get in trouble. But when we learn each other's needs and wants and desires, then we can work together to meet those and have a lot more peace and intimacy and love in our relationships.
Absolutely. And let's not be afraid to ask for what we need.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the most beautiful gift we can give someone else, because none of us are mind readers, at least that I'm aware of.
Yeah. We are not mind readers. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
There may be those select few, but.
And men and women have some differences.
You think?
The same. So we have to work extra hard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So just to be aware, the communication.
Yeah.
Linda, this has been such fabulous time with you. I know we could probably spend hours together.
Yeah.
This could channel into yet another podcast for our listeners coming forward. But before we finish up for today, tell us a little bit about this program that you've created, Serving Men. Tell us just a little bit about it, please.
Okay. So I'm going to do a coaching program, an 8-week coaching program, and I'm going to take men through 8 milestones that they can work on in their relationship with either their fiance, their future wife, or their wife of 30 years or whatever. And if they're really struggling and they're actually to that point where they're thinking about getting a divorce, this is a really good time to start working on your relationship. Maybe some of the things have been pushed to the side because you're so busy with your career or raising kids, but it's never too late. And
Awesome.
there are some long-term things that we'll look at, or divorce and all the different things that, people usually make decisions based on the greater of two goods or the lesser of two evils. And we're going to talk about all that. We're going to talk about commitment, and I have a list, but just expectations that you have for her. Some of your expectations might be too high for her. And also learning to love what she loves is a thing that's important to her. And I love the Great British Baking Show. My husband loves, John Wick, but you can, sometimes, okay, I'll watch this movie with you. Let's watch the Great British Baking Show together on, Friday night or whatever. But there's things that we can learn, what each other. He loves motorcycles. I'm not a motorcycle person, but you can learn to enjoy things that they love. But
or at least listen nicely.
Yeah. Or humor him. Take him to a motorcycle shop if that's what he wants to do, or take her to the symphony if she loves the symphony. Or there's so many things, but just deciding to commit to that relationship and to know that you're the only person you can change, and taking the action steps to communicate in a way that builds them up and builds yourself up, and learning how to share your needs in a way that's not like a demand, but a sharing the needs, so you can open up the communication to really hearing each other without the defensiveness and all those things that happen.
That's beautiful. Well, that's a beautiful place to land on, Linda. I'm feeling the love.
Yeah.
It's really important. And, you and I both were like, if we can save something before the divorce, help people come together, fabulous. But you know what? Even if it's a new relationship, if it's finding yourself so that you're the right person for that right relationship, that's what this is all about, so that you can live the life of your dreams together.
Exactly.
Because by yourself is awfully lonely.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You need to do it together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Life can be great. Yeah.
So thank you. I want to say thank you to you, Linda. Thank you to our dear listeners. Pardon?
Thank you for having me.
It's been wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
Thank you to our listeners. We're going to put Linda's contact information will be in the writing under this, either you're listening to the podcast or you're listening to the YouTube video. We'll have the writing underneath there, so you can contact Linda if you want. I can see ladies wanting to sign their guys up.
And then I can help the women also after that.
Right. Yeah. And guys, go ahead. It's good for all of us. Mm-hmm. Let's face it. You've identified men, but it's good for both men and women to be aware, just aware of how to have that better relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
So with that in mind, Linda's information is going to be below. I also want to let all of our listeners know that you can go onto our website, readyforarelationship.com. And we have support information there for you. We have other podcasts. We have some blogs. And I do have a 30-minute masterclass that I created just as a gift for you. 5 ways to be ready to have that fantastic love relationship. So we can clear out some past stuff and just be ready. So whatever you need, your services, everything is just available for you. And again, I want to say thank you for joining us. The only sad part for me is I forgot to bring along a coffee. Everybody knows this is my coffee chat. I don't think Linda or I have a
I'm
coffee.
obsessed with coffee. So.
But, hey, maybe we'll get it right next time.
Yeah.
So again,
Okay.
everybody, have a fabulous day. And Linda, thank you again for joining us.
Okay. Thank you, Suzanne. Okay. Talk to you soon.
Here we are at the end of the podcast, and you just got some Suzanne loving. If you got value out of this podcast and you want to spread some love too, subscribe, rate, review, leave a comment. And who was it that you were thinking about who could also be uplifted by it? Share it with them now. Catch you next time.